But, see, Woodmere. But,
Mikhail.
on what you were saying.
5:15 Mikhail,
Oh, that's what he's saying. What?
We're on.
We're on already? Okay. Thanks for...
here's your answer, by the way.
I don't have an answer.
Moshe wanted it very much. But guess what?
Oh, so I saw somewhere it said, you have a Ratzon for something, that means it comes from Hashem. You wouldn't have that Ratzon. So it's weird when you say, you want something, but Hashem says that's not for you. Because if you want it, it comes from a holy place.
You have to know that. I don't know where you read that from, but there's a big difference between a Ratzon.
He wasn't wearing yarmulke, but he speaks Kabbalah.
Okay, well there you go.
He might, but there's a difference between Ratzon and Taiva.
Right.
Both are from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. One, often you have to say no to. One will become who you are. You have to know the difference.
That's what's the difference. Oh, here we go.
You don't have regular achas over here. Ratzon is a true will. It comes from Keser. Taiva comes from the lowest part of who you are. From the sphere of Malchus. It's literally worlds apart.
How do you know which one's which?
You have to purify yourself. You have to know. You have to see where the emphasis is. It's not simple, but that's different. If he's talking about that Ratzon, Mr. Nanyamaka, then he's talking about the Keser, the Ratzon of the person, the potential of the person. That is from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's what he wants you to get. Again, you have to make sure that's a Kadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon, not your own Ratzon. Your Ratzon meaning your desires, your wants, which is sometimes selfishly created, not selflessly created. That's usually one of the telltale signs. The Kadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate in selflessness. He does everything and gets nothing. He cannot receive from man. It's impossible. What can you give? They're emotional. He doesn't. That's really for us. I say you have to learn all these sugyas properly. He doesn't get from it. Okay, nachas ruach. We have to really relearn a lot of these sugyas in a little bit of a more mature way. The Rebbeinu Shalom, God, the infinite one himself, he gets hana from our tefillas.
Thought so. Learning Torah.
Or he says he get. You know what it's like? I'll give you an example. Your 2-year-old does a finger painting. It's mamish garbage, and she gives it to you, and you're like, what do you say? Thank you, sweetie. That's so beautiful. Why did you do that? Did you get any hana from it? Not really. You did it for her. That's what the feel is. That's what a lot of this world is. Kadosh Baruch Hu gives up. He does it for us, and the whole world is for us.
That's a very good parable.
But it's a learn a lot of these things. Okay. Anyway, let's get to tonight's Torah. Sicha. Okay, 92. Yeah. Let's run through it once, like we do. Read through the whole thing straight, and then we'll come back around and we'll give a little bit of an explanation. Maybe. Always with Siyat Yishmayim. Always with Kulehai V'ulai. Okay, Kishbun Neshama Lo. Here you go. This is what you're talking about. When a neshama comes into the world, the action of that neshama, whatever it is that neshama is ordained, is pre-created to do. Did I just make up that word? Right? It's already been pre-created. It's already been put into the neshama. When it comes into the world, that pa'ula gets raised up in the world. He says, for example, could go. If this neshama is of a chacham, a very wise person, so chachma in general, wisdom in general, what?
It's a word.
Pre-created?
No, not very common.
Well, I'm not a common guy.
It's the past tense or past participle of the verb pre-create, which means to create in advance or before.
Oh, nice. I've never heard that word before, but that Kadosh Baruch Hu dropped it in my head. I'll upon him. You see that? A first here. You like that? From the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. So, when this neshama comes into the world, and it's a neshama of wisdom, so chachma in general, right? The neshama came into the world. It's a baby. But yet, because this neshama is filled with chachma, the pre-created chachma, the chachma of the world gets raised up. And that wisdom, the wisdom of the world, gets higher and higher from the day this neshama is created, is born, until the day of the histalkus, his death. And similarly, if this neshama, not wisdom, but he is of malchus, of regal, of leadership qualities. So if this neshama has that potential, when it comes into the world, therefore, all tactical thoughts of war, all types of malchus, gets raised up as well. Again, this neshama has this potential, and therefore when it comes into the world, the entire world gets raised up with that quality. And according to the quality, the mahus, the essence of this chachma, which type of chachma it is, because there's many layers within the world of chachma. You all right? All right. Carry on. Sure. Okay, let's read it quickly. We'll read again. First few lines, yeah?
Sorry.
92, quickly. The Mahalach is like this. We read through the whole thing straight, ask some questions, come back around. Pashup shot, which is always good, ask some questions, and then we say, let's try our best to understand. When a neshama comes into the world, the action that neshama is going to come out of this neshama over the course of this neshama's life, in the world, it starts to rise, ascend. Kigon, for example, if this neshama is of a chacham, there's wisdom put into this neshama, which eventually is going to be a chacham person, whether it's Talmud chacham or wise person in the world. The chacham of the world rises. And it continues to rise from the time this neshama comes into the world until the time that this person dies and the neshama leaves. And if this person, this neshama, is ordained with a certain malchus type of neshama, again, regal, leadership, powerful person, as all tactics of war, which comes from malchus, all iske ha-malchus, types of leadership, is going to again be raised up in the world. That's what Rabbi Nachman says. And according to the mahus, the essence of this chachma, whichever type of chachma it is, that chachma is going to get raised up as that neshama comes into the world. And similarly, according to the essence of that malchus, that preordained quality that is placed inside this neshama of malchus, in malchus harasha, or malchus tova. Is it a malchus harasha? Classically, Esav, or is it a malchus tova? Yaakov, right? What kind of malchus is it going to be? If it's a neshama that is implanted with rishus, so then the entire world of malchus of rishus, all the potential for bombs that are going to be detrimental to us, started being able to be created when a certain neshama was put into the world. Because there was this is how Rabbi Nachman says, we'll explain. Haklal, the rule is, that the action that this neshama is going to eventually do, even though he's just a baby right now, the second the neshama comes into the world, there's already an aliyah, an ascent in the world of that nakuda that the neshama came into the world to do. Now this is like part 2. Says Rabbi Nachman, there's 3 parts of a person's life. There's the Yemei Aliyah, the ascent, the person's growing. Yemei Amida, where he's standing, a holding pattern. Yemei Yerida, and a descent. Kigon, he says, Im Yemei Chayiv Shem Shana, or Mei Shana, if a person's life is, for example, 70 years, 100 years, as I shlishim Yamav, Hem Yemei Aliyah, a third of his life, a third of those years, Pashup Shah, is going to be days of growth. Ushlishim Hamida, a third of those days are going to be the holding of that growth, a holding pattern, stability. Ushlishim Yerid, and a third of those years is going to be a descent. Ken Pashup Shah. Dahainu, Sheshlish Yamav Olam Alamalu, and Kol Kochos. A third of his life he's going to be raising up with all those kochos that he has embedded inside of him. not manifesting them, that's what you're talking about, actualizing them, realizing them, and becoming those kochos. And a third of his life, he's already at the top of the mountain, he's already brought out those qualities, and he's going to live for a third of his life with those qualities. And then he's going to have a third of his life is going to be a descent from those qualities. And the days of Amida, of standing, he's filled up. Right? He's at his strength, he's worked on himself, right? And at that stage of Amida, he is his full self. And this is compared to the Levana of the moon. We know when Mr. Mordechai calls out when the Molad's going to be, that means that when you can't even see the Levana. He said it's small, so you can't even see it. We know it's there, but you can't see it. Then it gets bigger and bigger. Ad Shaba Neged Hashemesh, until it gets Neged Hashemesh, because we know, of course, that the moon doesn't get bigger and smaller. It's just in accordance to its orbit and how it faces the sun. When it's facing directly the sun, it's at its fullest. It's the light from the sun is directly on the moon, and it's its biggest. That's the 15th of the month. Right? Before that, it's not exactly with the sun, and after that, it's also not exactly with the sun. So on the 15th of the month, it's the full moon. It's the status of Amida. It's full Sichos Haran. Then again, it starts to wane, waxes and wanes. There's a little bit of a part 3 over here. Ibn Nachman says the segula of the Levana of the moon is lachluchas. Lachluchas usually means moisture, like wetness. So what is this wetness that's coming from the moon? So we know Rabbi Nachman's a big scientist, and he always knew what's going on over here. And you might know this, that from the time that the Levana is, when it's at its molad, again, where you can't see it, the tides are at its highest. Because the tides of the ocean are very dependent on the moon, on the status of the moon. So the way I think it works is that the tide is the highest when the moon can't be seen at the molad, and the 15th of the month. But in between those, the tides are lower.
How come?
We'll talk about it. That's what Nachman says. He just, we've learned a lot of Sichos Haran. He just throws these things in there, and until this day, I'm curious how people learn all these things. Every single week we ask the same question. I don't know how people learn, but we'll try our best. One more line that he said at the same time. He said to Rabbi Nassim that he said the rest of this. You're going to see it's totally seemingly off topic. Vidai says, "Shadiburim shemedabrim barabim." The words that are spoken by the masses, kol mashalom hem rabim yoser hadiburim nimtakim biyoser. The more the world speaks about these diburim, these phrases, they become sweeter. Nimtakim become sweeter. V'zeh bechinas shel hahainu damar inshe. You see in the Gemara sometimes this lashon hainu damar inshe. People say. Now I always thought it meant the Yidden say, and therefore it's like a saying. Listen to what he says. Shehem diburim shel goyim. When Chazal say hainu damar inshe, that people say is not referring to Jews. It's actually referring to goyim. Yeah, see? That's what I thought also. And then that terminology, that phrase, those phrases, the slangs came to Klal Yisrael because, listen, we're affected by our surroundings. So the phrases that are on TV, right, we also picked up at some point. Right? So when Klal Yisrael took these phrases and started to speak them amongst each other, we mamtik them, we sweeten them, and we raise them up to Devar Milyon. Zebechin is mehayam, and this is like the ocean waters. Shem beluchim, they're salty. The Yevshel Shlosim, you can't drink the water. But when that water flows down the mountains, through the sand, the rocks, they become sweet. The natural filtering process of the mountains and the sand can take the ocean water, which was probably evaporated first, rain came down on the mountains, but it can be purified. Ki achol mamtik hamayim, because the sand sweetens the water, again like a filtration process. V'azai ru'im l'shti, and then you could drink it. So too, the diburim, through Klal Yisrael speaking out these phrases, we are mamtik it. Okay, okay. Now, clearly that's what shaykhs to the beginning, if we could come up with something. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning. So, we have this neshama that's coming into the world. Everything has a purpose in this world. It's Davar Yedua. The Rebbeinu Shalom created the world. Everything has to have a purpose. Every person in this world has a specific purpose. And the world in general has a purpose. The world and the Jewish people. Right? Kadosh Baruch Hu creates this world for Klal Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do anything happenstance. Mamela, we have a specific purpose. We have also Klal Yisrael as a general purpose. And the world has to have some kind of purpose. I think that's Davar Yedua, Davar Pashut. Kadosh Baruch Hu, in his mysterious ways, intertwined the two. Because, just as we know, that the world, like I just said, was only created for Klal Yisrael, therefore the purpose that is found within each specific Jew, and the purpose that is slowly developing in the world has to correspond to each other. Because the world is built for the Jewish people, at large, but each prod as well. So as new people come into the world, right, with new potential, so too, the potential of the world also ascends. Because this person is going to bring something new into the world. The world has now had the potential to be a vessel for what that potential is. Right? Again, this is what we were saying before from Rabbi Nachman. When the neshama comes into the world, the pa'ul of that neshama starts to raise up, meaning the world of wisdom starts to ascend when a neshama of wisdom comes into it. The purpose of the neshama comes into the world, they all raise together. Now, to have this process work, that the purpose of a specific neshama and the purpose of the world to correspond, to connect, there has to be some common ground. Person and the world are two different things. There's people who live in the world. What is the commonality between really everything, all people and everything in the world? At the root of the matter, the Shoresh HaDevarim, there is a connecting point, which is what? What is the true DNA? See, in a human being, we have a DNA. But our DNA is not the same DNA as the table. It's different. We're made from different stuff. But what do we have that we, in our DNA, I'm being loose in the translation, and the table all has the same thing? We have the same DNA. Which is what? That's the spheres. Right? The 10 spheres, which is the spiritual DNA, which is the shoresh of the physical DNA, nothing can be in this world coming into the world gashmis first. There's no such thing. Yesh me'ayin, ayin is elukus, ayin is spheres, partzufim. But let's go basic, let's go with spheres. We know the 10 spheres. Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Nesed, Hod, Yisrael, Malchus. Right? These are the 10 spheres, spiritual DNA. Everything in this world has to come from, if you'd have a spiritual microscope, everything. Human beings, tables, cell phones, ideas, speech, whatever kind of speech it is, there's 10 spheres. If you had learned how to learn it properly. Right? Just imagine the different types of tones of speech. You could be yelling at a person, that could be gevura. You could speak nicely, that might be tiferes, and that could be chesed. You could speak with certainty, that could be netzach. You could speak in a way of surrender, that could be hod, yes? So you see, there has to be, and where do those come from? You'll just say, oh, that's language. No, it's coming from the 10 behaviors, the manifestations of the spheres that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in this world. The 10 building blocks of everything have to come from the spheres. So therefore, that's why Rabbi Nachman's Medaik, when he says, what were the two types of preordained kochos that he gives examples for? Chachma and Malchus. He's referring to the spheres specifically. So when a person, a neshama, is pre-created with a potential for wisdom, that which is chachma, which is a sphera, therefore the world, as this neshama comes in, automatically has to become the keli, the vessel with the potential to hold that new chachma, which is the commonality between person and the world, is the spheres. Same thing with Malchus. Now, even within, okay, one second, we'll go back to that a second. Now, where is the spiritual DNA of the person? The neshama. That's why the Torah starts off, the Sichos starts off, Kishabah neshama l'olam, specifically. When a neshama comes into the world, it's a non-physical thing, the neshama contains the spiritual DNA. Now, what does a neshama do? A neshama comes into the body, into the world, right? The body of a person is ki'ilu, a world. It's connected to each other, right? The neshama comes into the body, the potential, the spheres come into the world, and the body is like a world for this neshama. Now, the soul, the neshama, is a power plant, right? It has all the energy, all the potential energy that is going to flow through the body. It gives the ability to think, to speak, to feel, to do everything that a person can actualize in the physical world. All is coming from the energy of the neshama. Now, the hope is that a person, through his avoda, will allow the potential that the neshama has, whether he's a wisdom, bina, whatever sphera he's created from, and also the different levels. This person's not just with one koach, but he has one specific koach, and he has many things that connect to it. Al Koponim, the hope is that he becomes a clean transfer between or from his neshama to his body, and therefore he's able to actualize that neshama, the wisdom, let's say, right? His neshama is implanted with specific chachma, wisdom. He comes into the world, and we want to be able to utilize that wisdom. But if a person sells himself because he just wants to make some money, it could be that he's going to lose out on the wisdom. Or it could be that he'll use the wisdom in business. Or maybe he'll become a doctor and use the wisdom there. Because there's many types of chachma, as Rabbi Nachman said. According to the mahus of the chachma, is going to come out in this world. Now, there's many types of chachmas. It could be philosophical chachma, it could be Torah chachma, it could be doctor chachma. Right? There's so many different types. So whatever specific type of chachma is planted into this person, when he comes into the world, the potential for that in this world grows. Right? As we understand. So again, so in the Kishabah neshama l'olam, now we understand the first few lines. Kishabah neshama l'olam azayosa pa'ula shalosa neshama schelas lahasalos. Whatever specific DNA that neshama has, in potential, the entire world automatically, from the second the neshama is born, even though he's a little baby, nevertheless, the entire world is primed to be able to take in that koach and bring it to reality. Whether it's a neshama of chachama, whether it's a neshama of malchus, whether it's a neshama of netzach or hod, whatever it may be. And Rabbi Nachman said, "Lufi mahusa chachma is a chachma shu." Whatever type of chachma it is, because it's nuanced. We don't just say chachma in general. There's a million types. It could be almost infinite types of chachma that are going to come into the world. Right? This whole world is made up of many, many nuanced layers and manifestations and pieces. Every single nuance, every single type of chachma is going to come from the specific type of chachma that this Jew was planted with. Right? You could have a doctor, a wise doctor, but you have a doctor who's wise and he's an expert in fingers, hands. You have another doctor who's an expert in feet, and they mamish don't even overlap. Of course, there's certain yasodos that all doctors take. They all know a little bit of everything. But there's an eye doctor, there's a nose doctor, there's a ENT, there's a brain, there's even within the body, and then even within that, there's specific surgeries and specific bekiyas. We all know expertise. Right? So even the world of the chachma is very nuanced. And again, that specific chachma is going to have an aliyah when that neshama, with that potential, comes into the world. Says Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman said, "Hakla, what's the rule? Again, the pu'ula of that neshama, the action that neshama is going to be able to produce in this world, starts having an aliyah in the entire world when that neshama comes in. Rabbi Nachman talks about in other places, similar to what we're speaking about over here, that everything in this world has a certain pe'er, has a certain beauty, has a certain splendor. every detail within everything has a splendor, right? Every flower, which also has a pear, within the flower there's the stem, there's the petals, there's and everything is a pear because it's God made, and there's a certain splendor to it. Nachman says that every single detail of pear in this world comes from the pear of a Jew. This thing is created because of some Jew in this world, because the pasuk says, Yisrael asher b'cha espair. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Klal Yisrael, and you, I glorify myself. Espair, pear. So therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu creates in this world corresponding to every Jew, like we said before. Whatever neshama comes into the world, whatever nekuda he has, the world is going to correspondingly have the same thing. So too, all the pe'er of the world is going to correspondingly come from some pe'er and a Jew. We'd have to take more time to learn these Torahs and Nekutim around it. There's a lot like that Lamaisa person can be machazing himself in this way. There's a lot to take out of it. But this whole world is created for us. It's created for us. It's created from us and for us. Right? It's our DNA. And therefore it's created from us, and therefore we have the ability to connect to it more than anybody else. Now, let's go to the next shlav. Menachem said that there's 3 stages of life. There's the Aliyah, there's the Amida, and there's the Yerida. Right? The growth, the maximized potential, and then there's the Yerida. If a person lives 70, 80 years, whatever it is, he split the third of the third. Menachem says, and then he went into the moon.
What type of growth is it? Is it spiritual growth referring to? Physical growth, I can understand. The body grows and it stagnates, and then
it's all types of growth. All types of growth. Physical also.
Because it could be that there are some people who don't actualize the maximum spiritual growth, and then they, 40, 50 years old, they start learning more, and then they
so you're asking a question that we're going to have to ask. And it sounds like the Pashup Shad of Rabbi Nachman. It sounds like that these 3 stages, right? If a guy lives 90 years, the first 30 years is Aliyah, the next 30 years is Amida, and the next 30 years is Yerida.
Seems fixed.
Could that be every single person's like that? Not only that, besides the logical question, the next second Rabbi Nachman compares it to the moon. Right? The moon, which has a cycle, which he claims is 3 parts, which is fine, even though it's kind of like 2, but there's 3 parts. It starts off as nothing, it grows, gets to its full potential, and then it wanes, I think, right? It gets smaller. The moon is a monthly cycle. So every month the cycle's happening. Rabbi Nachman just said, if we learn Pashup Shad, 90-year-old person, 30 years is stage A, 30 years is stage B, and 30 years is stage C. Then he goes and tells us about the moon, which every month we'll just say it's 10 days, 10 days, and 10 days. Let's just say, not really, but it's really 15 and 15. But how did he bring from the moon a connection? The time periods are off. It doesn't make sense. Again, logical question number 1, every single person has 30 years up, 30 years down, 30. What happens if the guy starts at 50 years old? He starts learning new things, whatever it is. So you see, it can't really mean the Pashup Shad of a shlish, first 30 years, middle 30, and then it can't be. So you have to understand what does he mean. Also, which I think is a davar pashut, we all know, and we have to just explain how it makes sense here. When the moon waxes and wanes, it itself is not getting bigger and smaller. It's always the same size. It's just the amount of light that's reflecting on it from the sun. That's when it looks bigger, and that's when it looks smaller. The moon's always there, it's just dark. In space, there's no light unless the sun's lighting you up, enlightening you. So, how are we going to compare the union of the moon to our growing, holding, and descending? What's changing by us? What's our sun in comparison? Right? We're not going to make the comparison, so we have to follow through with it. In the 3-part process of growing, holding, and descending, which is not an actual growth bigger and smaller, right? Even though physicality, a person does do this, but it's not really what it's referring to. It's referring to something deeper. So we're not talking about physical growth. We're talking about being enlightened and delightened. What is that in the person? Okay, So I think like this, our life will experience these three aspects: the Aliyah, the Amida, the Yerida. It will not be the first 30 years, the next 30 years. It could be, but it's lav davka. That's not the inyan, because it could even be every month a person having Aliyahs and Yeridas. It could be even daily changes. You at the beginning of your day, you're up. In the middle of the day, you're and then lower at the end of the day, you're down. Or at night, you were up. Then the morning, you woke up, you're down. You're down. Whatever. So it's not time related. It could be once in a while. There could be an inyan that's time related, but I don't think that's what he really means. We have within our life these three stages. Yeah. And even though time could be connected to it, it's not dependent on time. Rather, these aliyahs, amidas, and yeridas are dependent really on the sun, as with the moon. What is our sun? Huh?
Could be Hashem and then we're the moon.
So we usually understand Klal Yisrael is like likened to the moon, which is probably what Rabbi Nachman's referring to. Therefore, if we're like the moon, Kadosh Baruch Hu is like the sun. Okay? So what is it then? What does it mean? So we're the moon, and depending on when we face the sun enough, right? Who's orbiting who? Does the sun orbit around the moon, or does the moon orbit around the sun? There's no science?
Around the sun.
I think everything goes around the sun. I think so, right? The sun is, not actual sun. The mashal of the sun is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, not actually the sun. There were people who worship the sun. Understandably so. We can make sense. We can make sense in some way. Baruch upon him. So the moon is orbiting around. It's in orbit. That's the way it's created. Sometimes it's going to get lit up. Sometimes it's not. It's going to be dark. But our ability to line up with him, to become enlightened by him, is dependent on what? Das. Das is the ability to line up, to become enlightened by the face of Kadosh Baruch Hu. And there's a process of life called Yemei Galus, Yemei Katnas. There's a process of life called Yemei Aliyah, Yemei Amida, and Yemei Yerida, Rabbi Nachman saying. It's automatic. Throughout life, you're going to go through all different types of these three parts. Sometimes you're going to be growing, sometimes you're going to be at your full blast, and sometimes you're going to be descending. A katnas. It's always going to be happening. One midah might be an aliyah, then another midah might be an amida, and another third midah of yours might be in a yerida. It's possible. You have different status of different things. Whatever your inner qualities are, and whatever you're trying to manifest in this world, to bring out, actualize. There's so many of them. And there's going to be this three-part process, a constant cycle, right? With the moon, it's a constant cycle that comes around again and again and again and again and again and again and again. On one hand, the moon is constantly cycling around the same thing. But there's larger cycles of life where we're not just going to cycle around. We're going to get to level 5 and then go back to 0. Level 5 and then level 0. Hopefully we're going to get to level 5 and down to level 3. And then back up to level 7, then down to level 5, then up to level 10. Right? We're also going to cycle around Aliyah, Amida, Yerida, but hopefully not back down to 0. Right? That's more of the long life mashal of Rabbi Nachman. A third of his life will be growth, a third will be Amida, and a third will be Yerida. It doesn't mean mamish get back down to the beginning, like the moon. You have to take from each part of the mashal.
It could also be that it's not consecutive. Let's say the first 10 years of growth and there's stagnation and there's Yerida and there's meaning you can have a 5-year span in your 60s that you could be growing.
So I'm saying it's not exactly depend. It's just that these 3 cycles are going to happen throughout your life. It's a cycle of Aliyah, Amida, Yerida, just how it's going to happen, how many years this and that. Which Mida, it's always going to be happening in the background. Just know that. There's no exact set time for anything. The goal is that we're always we know the system, and we try our best to always align ourselves with the sun. Right? Whereas the moon has no ability to have a bechira, it can't choose. It's just that's the cycle. So a Jew will go through that cycle. However, asterisk, we do have the ability that even when things are dark, Ve'monascha b'leilos. Right? You could still turn towards the sun. It's dark. It's true. It's dark. There's a Yerida now. There is a devastation. There's a tragedy. There's difficulties. There's Gevur. There's Din. There's darkness. There's a Yerida. But we have, and that's going to happen because we're with the moon. But we have the ability, if we, to at least turn with our das, to say, oh, I know that there is a sun there. I know that I'll be back. I know that this is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I know that eventually I will have again an aliyah. Right? The moon can't do that because the moon is the moon. But a yid can do that. Right? And that's we have to make sure we do that. Because again, we're going to always have these cycles. No one's always up. No one's always down. No one's always at full kochos. It's always a system, a cycle, a process. That's what Rabbi Nachman is teaching us. And then he says that the segul of the Levana, part of the moon, is that it guides the tides, right, in the oceans. So we understand that when the moon is full, the 15th of the month, that creates high tide. That makes logic, you can make sense without getting too much into it. It's the biggest moon and the biggest tides. But what do we know? When the moon is being born, which it's at smallest, the tides are also at the highest. How does that make sense? Who wants the answer?
It's always flowing. It's just that we're not in a position to receive it, so it's dark for us.
Why would it be that when the moon is at its smallest, the tide is the highest?
Has the most potential.
Has the most potential. Because when a person hits rock bottom, when a person at its lowest, you only can look up. The potential's there. See, we can't make a mistake to think that it's only when everything's being manifested and actualized, then we're on the top, we could feel good. But when we're in a low, so we should feel low. No, it's not true. Even on the way down, or even at the bottom mamish, there's always a way to look up. Because there's always the next potential, because the wave's going to come back. The cycle's always going to come back. So how are you looking? Are you looking down, depressed? This is it, my life's over? Or no, you have a moon and you understand the process that it's going to turn back around. So the highest tide is also at the bottom because you have the highest level of potential to maximize those kochos that you have. But it's all dependent on your bechira. Your bechira. And then he comes to the end of the Sicha, which, what's he talking about over here? The Diburim that are spoken by people. The Goyim spoke about it, then Klaiser speaks about it, or Mamtik it, like the salty waters. What do you think? Remember that piece?
Yeah.
Shechazor, you remember it?
Yeah, but what was with the moisture?
No, the moisture was the tides.
Oh.
That was the tides. That we just explained. So how does it connect to the end here?
I was thinking that we're considered the chol, like the chol hayam, and then therefore we filter through all the things, just like we use phrases from TV shows in Torah when we're explaining.
I'm saying that's what he's saying. How does it connect to the piece? I was setting the stage. One may think when you're at a low in the cycle, you read it's a fallen, it's going there. It's like, what's the tachlis over here? There's nothing can be gained here. I'm in a Yerida. I know what I'm in a Yerida. Even if you tell me, I know I'll get back to an Aliyah, I believe that. But B'shasim in the Yerida, well, I just got to get out of this thing. Right? That's why people might say that. However, Nachman says it's not true. When you're at a low, what did we just say with the high tides? The greatest potential. When the Goyim have phrases, it's at a low. But it has a potential. It might get into Klal Yisrael, and we can be mamtik it. The salty waters, which is like, what are you going to do with this thing? Let's say they didn't know how to boil it, whatever. What are you going to do with this water? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it evaporate, and I'm going to drop it down on top of the mountain, and then it's going to come down the mountain, and through the chol, the sand, and the rocks, it's going to filter out. So you thought that at the low, it's a fallen, it's garnished, you can't do anything with it. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, that's not true. That's the ending of bittul. Right? Mevatel what you think.
Also want to evaporate the dirty salt.
It's also part of it.
The particles stay.
That's also part of it, exactly. And that's the ending of bittul. So don't think that when you're at the low, it's game over. That's only if you're Balgaiva. Right? If you're mevatel yourself to the low, because that's part of the process, and you don't fight against the low. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, this is how the process goes. So even in the low, there's a potential there's what to gain. And then when you hit the high, there are certain kochos that were in only a potential state at your low. You just didn't realize it. Something may have happened. You had a difficulty with something, and when you hit the high, the aliyah or the amida, you'll be reminded of that thing that was at the low. Somehow it's triggering whatever. I don't know an example, but now it's maximizing. Now you see, oh, I needed that low to get to this high. Or something that I had down there, now I'm able to utilize it now. So that's the same thing. I think that might be connected to what he was saying with the dibur. That the dibur can start in a low with the goyim. Yeah, when Klal Yisrael gets it, they can be mantik. They're a low, but then it became dvar milyonim. So too with the salty water, it can go down and can be mantik through the mountains. Maybe that's what happens. So it's a big Indian. And so there's a lot of things to take out from the end. The one thing to take out is that every single person has a specific mission, a tafkid. Whatever he has inside of him, just know that there's a corresponding aspect in the world at large that is the vessel for you to actualize yourself in. Right? We have three parts to this process of actualizing these kochos. Right? These specific kochos, the chachma, the malchus, whatever specific kochos we get, it's going to be a process of life through zman aliyah, the growth, the amida, the full actualization, and then the yerida. And even on the yerida, there's what to gain. Don't think that it's a garnished. Right? Have a moon in the process. Be positive. Always turn towards the sun, even when it's dark. And then you'll be able to take from the low, even from the diburim of the goyim, you'll be able to mamtik it to the filtration process. Hakan, Sicha.
So it's almost like everyone in life has the same life.